Today we are covering Cisco, securing networks with Cisco Firepower 300-710 SNCF. To find the complete list of questions and answers, please go to the playlist link provided in the description. If you like this content, do like, share and subscribe to this channel. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Question is, a network engineer wants to add a third-party threat feed into the Cisco FMC for enhanced threat detection. Which action should be taken to accomplish this goal? Option A. Enable rapid threat containment using REST APIs. Option B. Enable rapid threat containment using STIX and TAXII. Option C. Enable Threat Intelligence Director using REST APIs. Option D. Enable Threat Intelligence Director using STIX and TAXII. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, a network engineer is logged into the Cisco AMP for Endpoints console and sees a malicious verdict for an identified SHA 256 hash. Which configuration is needed to mitigate this threat? Option A. Add the hash to the simple custom detection list. Option B. Use regular expressions to block the malicious file. Option C. Enable a personal firewall in the infected endpoint. Option D. Add the hash from the infected endpoint to the network block list. Correct answer is option A. Next question is, a network administrator is concerned about the high number of malware files affecting users' machines. What must be done within the access control policy in Cisco FMC to address this concern? Option A. Create an intrusion policy and set the access control policy to block. Option B. Create an intrusion policy and set the access control policy to allow. Option C. Create a file policy and set the access control policy to allow. Option D. Create a file policy and set the access control policy to block. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, which Cisco AMP for endpoints policy is used only for monitoring endpoint activity? Option A. Windows Domain Controller. Option B. Audit. Option C. Triage. Option D. Protection. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, a network administrator notices that SI events are not being updated. The Cisco FTD device is unable to load all of the SI event entries and traffic is not being blocked as expected. What must be done to correct this issue? Option A. Restart the affected devices in order to reset the configurations. Option B. Redeploy configurations to affect devices so that additional memory is allocated to the SI module. Option C. Replace the affected devices with devices that provide more memory. Option D. Manually update the SI event entries to that the appropriate traffic is blocked. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, a network engineer implements a new Cisco firepower device on the network to take advantage of its intrusion detection functionality. There is a requirement to analyze the traffic going across the device, alert on any malicious traffic, and appear as a bump in the wire. How should this be implemented? Option A. Specify the BVI IP address as the default gateway for connected devices. Option B. Enable routing on the Cisco Firepower. Option C. Add an IP address to the physical Cisco Firepower interfaces. Option D. Configure a bridge group in transparent mode. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, network traffic coming from an organization's CEO must never be denied. Which access control policy configuration option should be used if the deployment engineer is not permitted to create a rule to allow all traffic? Option A. Change the intrusion policy from security to balance. Option B. Configure a trust policy for the CEO. Option C. Configure firewall bypass. Option D. Create a NAT policy just for the CEO. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, with Cisco FTD software, which interface mode must be configured to passively receive traffic that passes through the appliance? Option A. Inline set. Option B. Passive. Option C. Routed. Option D. Inline tap. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, which two OSPF routing features are configured in Cisco FMC and propagated to Cisco FTD? Choose two options. Option A. OSPF v2 with IPv6 capabilities. Option B. Virtual links. Option C. SHA authentication to OSPF packets. Option D. Area Boundary Router Type 1 LSA filtering. Option E. MD5 authentication to OSPF packets. Correct answer is option B and option E. Next question is, what is the advantages of having Cisco Firepower devices send events to Cisco Threat Response via the Security Services Exchange portal directly as opposed to using syslog? Option A. Firepower devices do not need to be connected to the internet. Option B. An on-premises proxy server does not need to set up and maintained. Option C. All types of firepower devices are supported. Option D. Supports all devices that are running supported versions of firepower. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, an engineer has been tasked with using Cisco FMC to determine if files being sent through the network are malware. Which two configurations tasks must be performed to achieve this file lookup? Choose two options. Option A. The Cisco FMC needs to include a SSL decryption policy. Option B. The Cisco FMC needs to connect to the Cisco AMP for endpoints service. Option C. The Cisco FMC needs to connect to the Cisco Threat Grid service directly for sandboxing. Option D. The Cisco FMC needs to connect with the Fire AMP cloud. Option E. The Cisco FMC needs to include a file inspection policy for malware lookup. Correct answer is option C and option E. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Question is, a network administrator is concerned about the high number of malware files affecting users' machines. What must be done within the access control policy in Cisco FMC to address this concern? Option A. Create an intrusion policy and set the access control policy to block. Option B. Create an intrusion policy and set the access control policy to allow. Option C. Create a file policy and set the access control policy to allow. Option D. Create a file policy and set the access control policy to block. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, what is the result of enabling Cisco FTD clustering? Option A. For the dynamic routing feature, if the master unit fails, the newly elected master unit maintains all existing connections. Option B. Integrated routing and bridging is supported on the master unit. Option C. Site-to-site VPN functionality is limited to the master unit, and all VPN connections are dropped if the master unit fails. Option D. All firepower appliances support Cisco FTD clustering. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, which command line mode is supported from the Cisco FMC CLI? Option A. Privileged. Option B. User. Option C. Configuration. Option D. Admin. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, which command is run at the CLI when logged in to an FTD unit to determine whether the unit is managed locally or by a remote FMC server? Option A. System generate troubleshoot. Option B. Show configuration session. Option C. Show managers. Option D. Show running config include manager. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, which command should be used on the Cisco FTD CLI to capture all the packets that hit an interface? Option A. Configure core dump packet engine enable. Option B. Capture traffic. Option C. Capture. Option D. Capture word. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, an organization is setting up two new Cisco FTD devices to replace their current firewalls and cannot have any network downtime. During the setup process, the synchronization between the two devices is failing. What action is needed to resolve this issue? Option A. Confirm that both devices are running the same software version. Option B. Confirm that both devices are configured with the same types of interfaces. Option C. Confirm that both devices have the same flash memory sizes. Option D. Confirm that both devices have the same port channel numbering? Correct answer is option A. Next question is, an engineer is attempting to create a new dashboard within the Cisco FMC to have a single view with widgets from many of the other dashboards. The goal is to have a mixture of threat and security related widgets along with the Cisco Firepower device health information. Which two widgets must be configured to provide this information? Choose two options. Option A, intrusion events. Option B, correlation information. Option C, appliance status. Option D, current sessions. Option E, network compliance. Correct answer is option A and option C. Next question is, which Cisco Firepower threat defense, which two interface settings are required when configuring a routed interface? Choose two options. Option A, redundant interface. Option B, ether channel. Option C, speed. Option D, media type. Option E, duplex. Correct answer is option C and option E. Next question is, a network administrator notices that remote access VPN users are not reachable from inside the network. It is determined that routing is configured correctly. However, return traffic is entering the firewall but not leaving it. What is the reason for this issue? Option A, a manual NAT exemption rule does not exist at the top of the NAT table. Option B, an external NAT IP address is not configured. Option C, an external NAT IP address is configured to match the wrong interface. Option D, an object NAT exemption rule does not exist at the top of the NAT table. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, an engineer must build redundancy into the network and traffic must continuously flow if a redundant switch in front of the firewall goes down. What must be configured to accomplish this task? Option A, redundant interfaces on the firewall cluster mode and switches. Option B, redundant interfaces on the firewall non-cluster mode and switches. Option C, VPC on the switches to the interface mode on the firewall cluster. Option D, VPC on the switches to the span ether channel on the firewall cluster. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, in a Cisco AMP for networks deployment, which disposition is returned if the cloud cannot be reached? Option A, unavailable. Option B, unknown. Option C, clean. Option D, disconnected. Correct answer is option A. Next question is, what is a functionality of port objects in Cisco FMC? Option A, to mix transport protocols when setting both source and destination port conditions in a rule. Option B, to represent protocols other than TCP, UDP, and ICMP. Option C, to represent all protocols in the same way. Option D, to add any protocol other than TCP or UDP for source port conditions in access control rules. Correct answer is option B. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Now the question is, which personas can be a Cisco ISE node assume? Option A. Policy service, gatekeeping and monitoring. Option B. Administration, monitoring and gatekeeping. Option C. Administration, policy service and monitoring. Option D. Administration, policy service, gatekeeping. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, what occurs when a Cisco ISE distributed deployment has two nodes and the secondary node is deregistered? Option A. The secondary node restarts. Option B. The primary node restarts. Option C. Both nodes restart. Option D. The primary node becomes standalone. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, which two features are available when the primary admin node is down and the secondary admin node has not been promoted? Choose two options. Option A. New AD user 802.1x authentication. Option B. Hotspot. Option C. Posture. Option D. Guest AUP. Option E. BYOD. Correct answer is option B and option D. Next question is, which supply applicants and servers are capable of supporting EAP chaining? Which supplicants and servers are capable of supporting EAP chaining? Option A. Cisco Secure Service Client and Cisco Access Control Server. Option B. Cisco AnyConnect NAM and Cisco Identity Service Engine. Option C. Cisco AnyConnect NAM and Cisco Access Control Server. Option D. Windows Native Supplicant and Cisco Identity Service Engine. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, what is a requirement for feed service to work? Option A. TCP port 8080 must be opened between Cisco ISE and the feed server. Option B. Cisco ISE has access to an internal server to download feed update. Option C. Cisco ISE has a base license. Option D. Cisco ISE has internet access to download feed update. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, what is a method for transporting security group tags throughout the network? Option A. By embedding the security group tag in the 802.1 queue header. Option B. By the security group tag exchange protocol. Option C. By enabling 802.1 AE on every network device. Option D. By embedding the security group tag in the IP header. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, what is the result of enabling Cisco FTD clustering? Option A. For the dynamic routing feature, if the master unit fails, the newly elected master unit maintains all existing connections. Option B. Integrated routing and bridging is supported on the master unit. Option C. Site-to-site VPN functionality is limited to the master unit, and all VPN connections are dropped if the master unit fails. Option D. All firepower appliances support Cisco FTD clustering. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, which two conditions are necessary for high availability to function between two Cisco FTD devices? Choose two options. Option A. The units must be same version. Option B. Both devices can be part of a different group that must be in the same domain when configured within the FMC. Option C. The units must be different models if they are part of the same series. Option D. The units must be configured only for firewall routed mode. Option E. The units must be the same model. Correct answer is option A and option E. Next question is on the Advanced tab under Inline Set Properties, which allows interfaces to emulate a passive interface. Option A. Transparent Inline Mode. Option B. TAP Mode. Option C. Strict TCP Enforcement. Option D. Propagate Link State. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, what are the minimum requirements to deploy a managed device inline? Option A. Inline interfaces, security zones, MTU, and mode. Option B. Passive interface, MTU, and mode. Option C. Inline interfaces, MTU, and mode. Option D. Passive interface, security zone, MTU, and mode. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, what is the difference between inline and inline tap on Cisco Firepower? Option A. Inline tap mode can send a copy of the traffic to another device. Option B. Inline tap mode does full packet capture. Option C. Inline mode cannot do SSL decryption. Option D. Inline mode can drop malicious traffic. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, with Cisco FTD software, which interface mode must be configured to passively receive traffic that passes through the appliance? Option A. Inline set. Option B. Passive. Option C. Routed. Option D. Inline tap. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, which two deployment types support high availability? Choose two options. Option A. Transparent. Option B. Routed. Option C. Clustered. Option D. Intra-chassis multi-instance. Option E. Virtual appliance in public cloud. So guys, what is the answer for this question? Do write it in the comment section. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Question is, which protocol establishes network redundancy in a switched firepower device deployment? Option A. STP. Option B. HSRP. Option C. GLBP. Option D. VRRP. Correct answer is option A. Next question is which interface type allows packets to be dropped? Option A passive, option B inline, option C ER span, option D tap. Correct answer is option B. Next question is which Cisco firepower threat defense which two interface settings are required when configuring a routed interface? Choose two options. Option A redundant interface, option B ether channel, option C speed, option D media type, option E duplex. Correct answer is option C and option E. Next question is which policy rule is included in the deployment of a local DMZ during the initial deployment of a Cisco NGFW through the Cisco FMC GUI? Option A a default DMZ policy for which only a user can change the IP addresses. Option B deny IP any. Option C no policy rule is included. Option D permit IP any. Correct answer is option C. Next question is what are two application layer preprocessors? Choose two options. Option A CIFS, option B IMAP, option C SSL, option D DNP3, option E ICMP. Correct answer is option B and option C. Next question is an engineer is implementing Cisco FTD in the network and is determining which firepower mode to use. The organization needs to have multiple virtual firepower devices working separately inside of the FTD appliance to provide traffic segmentation. Which deployment mode should be configured in the Cisco Firepower Management Console to support these requirements? Option A multi-instance, option B multiple deployment, option C single deployment, option D single context. Correct answer is option A. Next question is a network engineer is extending a user segment through an FTD device for traffic inspection without creating another IP subnet. How is this accomplished on an FTD device in routed mode? Option A by assigning an inline set interface. Option B by using a BVI and creating a BVI IP address in the same subnet as the user segment. Option C by leveraging the ARP to direct traffic through the firewall. Option D by bypassing protocol inspection by leveraging p-filter rules. Correct answer is option A. Next question is an engineer is configuring a Cisco FTD appliance in IPS only mode and needs to utilize fail to wire interfaces. Which interface mode should be used to meet these requirements? Option A passive, option B routed, option C transparent, option D inline set. Correct answer is option D. Next question is an organization has noticed that malware was downloaded from a website that does not currently have a known bad reputation. How will this issue be addressed globally in the quickest way possible and with the least amount of impact? Option A by creating a URL object in the policy to block the website. Option B. Cisco Talos will automatically update the policies. Option C. By denying outbound web access. Option D. By isolating the endpoint. Correct answer is option B. Next question is the event dashboard within the Cisco FMC has been inundated with low priority intrusion drop events which are overshadowing high priority events. An engineer has been tasked with reviewing the policies and reducing the low priority events. Which action should be configured to accomplish this task? Option A. Drop packet. Option B. Generate events. Option C. Drop connection. Option D. Drop and generate. Correct answer is option B. Next question is with Cisco FTD integrated routing and bridging, which interface does the bridge group use to communicate with a routed interface? Option A. Sub interface. Option B. Switch virtual. Option C. Bridge virtual. Option D. Bridge group member. Correct answer is option C. Next question is an engineer is setting up a new firepower deployment and is looking at the default FMC policies to start the implementation. During the initial trial phase, the organization wants to test some common SNOT rules while still allowing the majority of network traffic to pass. Which default policy should be used? Option A. Balanced security and connectivity. Option B. Security over connectivity. Option C. Maximum detection. Option D. Connectivity over security. Correct answer is option D. Next question is an engineer is configuring a second Cisco FMC as a standby device but is unable to register with the active unit. What is causing this issue? Option A. The code versions running on the Cisco FMC devices are different. Option B. The licensing purchased does not include high availability. Option C. The primary FMC currently has devices connected to it. Option D. There is only 10 Mbps of bandwidth between the two devices. Correct answer is option A. Next question is while configuring FTD, a network engineer wants to ensure that traffic passing through the appliance does not require routing or VLAN rewriting. Which interface mode should the engineer implement to accomplish this task? Option A. Inline set. Option B. Passive. Option C. Transparent. Option D. Inline tap. Correct answer is option B. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Question is a multi-tenant deployment where multiple domains are in use, which update should be applied outside of the global domain? Option A. Minor upgrade. Option B. Local import of intrusion rules. Option C. Cisco geolocation database. Option D. Local import of major upgrade. Correct answer is option C. Next question is an organization has a compliancy requirement to protect servers from clients. However, the clients and servers all are reside on the same layer 3 network. Without readdressing IP subnets for clients or servers, how is segmentation achieved? Option A. Change the IP address of the servers while remaining on the same subnet. Option B. Deploy a firewall in routed mode between the clients and servers. Option C. Change the IP addresses of the clients while remaining on the same subnet. Option D. Deploy a firewall in transparent mode between the clients and servers. Correct answer is option B. Next question is network traffic coming from an organization's CEO must never be denied. Which access control policy configuration option should be used if the deployment engineer is not permitted to create a rule to allow all traffic? Option A. Change the intrusion policy from security to balance. Option B. Configure a trust policy for the CEO. Option C. Configure firewall bypass. Option D. Create a NAT policy just for the CEO. Correct answer is option B. Next question is what is a characteristic of bridge groups on a Cisco FTD? Option A. In routed firewall mode, routing between bridge group is supported. Option B. Routing between bridge groups is achieved only with a router on a stick configuration on a connected router. Option C. In routed firewall mode, routing between bridge groups must pass through a routed interface. Option D. In transparent firewall mode, routing between bridge group is supported. Correct answer is option A. Next question is a Cisco FTD device is running in transparent firewall mode with a VTEP bridge group member ingress interface. What must be considered by an engineer tasked with specifying a destination MAC address for a packet trace? Option A. The output format option for the packet logs is unavailable. Option B. Only the UDP packet type is supported. Option C. The destination MAC address is optional if a VLAN ID value is entered. Option D. The VLAN ID and destination MAC address are optional. Correct answer is option C. Next question is with Cisco FTD software, which interface mode must be configured to passively receive traffic that passes through the appliance? Option A. ER span. Option B. Firewall. Option C. TAP. Option D. IPS only. Correct answer is option A. Next question is an engineer is monitoring network traffic from their sales and product development departments, which are on two separate networks. What must be configured in order to maintain data privacy for both departments? Option A. Use passive IDS ports for both departments. Option B. Use a dedicated IPS inline set for each department to maintain traffic separation. Option C. Use 802.1q inline set trunk interfaces with VLANs to maintain logical traffic separations. Option D. Use one pair of inline set in TAP mode for both departments. Correct answer is option D. Next question is a hospital network needs to upgrade their Cisco FMC managed devices and needs to ensure that a disaster recovery process is in place. What must be done in order to minimize downtime on the network? Option A. Configure a second circuit to an ISP for adding redundancy. Option B. Keep a copy of the current configuration to use a backup. Option C. Configure the Cisco FMCs for failover. Option D. Configure the Cisco FMC managed devices for clustering. Correct answer is option C. Next question is an organization has implemented Cisco Firepower without IPS capabilities and now wants to enable inspection for their traffic. They need to be able to detect protocol anomalies and utilize the SNOT rule sets to detect malicious behavior. How is this accomplished? Option A. Modify the network discovery policy to detect new hosts to inspect. Option B. Modify the access control policy to redirect interesting traffic to the engine. Option C. Modify the intrusion policy to determine the minimum severity of an event to inspect. Option D. Modify the network analysis policy to process the packets for inspection. Correct answer is option D. Next question is an engineer is tasked with deploying an internal perimeter firewall that will support multiple DMZs. Each DMZ has a unique private IP subnet range. How is this requirement satisfied? Option A. Deploy the firewall in transparent mode with access control policies. Option B. Deploy the firewall in routed mode with access control policies. Option C. Deploy the firewall in routed mode with NAT configured. Option D. Deploy the firewall in transparent mode with NAT configured. Correct answer is option C. Next question is an engineer must configure high availability for the Cisco firewall firepower devices. The current network topology does not allow for two devices to pass traffic concurrently. How must the devices be implemented in this environment? Option A. In active mode. Option B. In a cluster span Ether channel. Option C. In active passive mode. Option D. In cluster interface mode. Correct answer is option C. These are the top 50 most common certification questions that you could have in your exam. If you want to download the complete list of current updated questions, please download it from the link provided in the description. Question is, when deploying a Cisco ASA firepower module, an organization wants to evaluate the contents of the traffic without affecting the network. It is currently configured to have more than one instance of the same device on the physical appliance. Which deployment mode meets the needs of the organization? Option A. Inline tap monitor only mode. Option B. Passive monitor only mode. Option C. Passive tap monitor only mode. Option D. Inline mode. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, an organization has a Cisco FTD that uses bridge groups to pass traffic from the inside interfaces to the outside interfaces. They are unable to gather information about neighboring Cisco devices or use multicast in their environment. What must be done to resolve this issue? Option A. Create a firewall rule to allow CDP traffic. Option B. Create a bridge group with the firewall interfaces. Option C. Change the firewall mode to transparent. Option D. Change the firewall mode to routed. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, a network engineer implements a new Cisco firepower device on the network to take advantages of its intrusion detection functionality. There is a requirement to analyze the traffic going across the device, alert on any malicious traffic, and appear as a bump in the wire. How should this be implemented? Option A. Specify the BVI IP address as the default gateway for connected devices. Option B. Enable routing on the Cisco firepower. Option C. Add an IP address to the physical Cisco firepower interfaces. Option D. Configure a bridge group in transparent mode. Correct answer is option D. Next question is, which two conditions must be met to enable high availability between two Cisco FTD devices? Choose two options. Option A. Same flash memory size. Option B. Same NTP configuration. Option C. Same DHCP PPOE configuration. Option D. Same host name. Option E. Same number of interfaces. Correct answer is option B and option E. Next question is, an engineer is building a new access control policy using Cisco FMC. The policy must inspect a unique IPS policy as well as log rule matching. Which action must be taken to meet these requirements? Option A. Configure an IPS policy and enable per rule logging. Option B. Disable the default IPS policy and enable global logging. Option C. Configure an IPS policy and enable global logging. Option D. Disable the default IPS policy and enable per rule logging. Correct answer is option A. Next question is, which two OSPF routing features are configured in Cisco FMC and propagated to Cisco FTD? Choose two options. Option A. OSPF v2 with IPv6 capabilities. Option B. Virtual links. Option C. SHA authentication to OSPF packets. Option D. Area Boundary Router Type 1 LSA filtering. Option E. MD5 authentication to OSPF packets. Correct answer is option B and option E. Next question is, when creating a report template, How are the results limited to show only the activity of a specific subnet? Option A. Create a custom search in Cisco FMC and select it in each section of the report. Option B. Add an input parameter in the advanced settings of the report and set the type to network IP. Option C. Add a table view section to the report with the search field defined as the network in CIDR format. Option D. Select IP address as the x-axis in each section of the report. Correct answer is option B. Next question is, what is the disadvantage of setting up a site-to-site VPN in a clustered unit environment? Option A. VPN connections can be re-established only if the failed master unit recovers. Option B. Smart license is required to maintain VPN connections simultaneously across all cluster units. Option C. VPN connections must be re-established when a new master unit is elected. Option D. Only established VPN connections are maintained when a new master unit is elected. Correct answer is option C. Next question is, what are two features of bridge group interface in Cisco FTD? Choose two options. Option A. The BVI IP address must be in a separate subnet from the connected network. Option B. Bridge groups are supported in both transparent and routed firewall modes. Option C. Bridge groups are supported only in transparent firewall mode. Option D. Bidirectional forwarding detection echo packets are allowed through the FTD when using bridge group members. Option E. Each directly connected network must be on the same subnet. Correct answer is option C and option D. Next question is, which two actions can be used in an access control policy rule? Choose two options. Option A. Block with reset. Option B. Monitor. Option C. Analyze. Option D. Discover. Option E. Block all. Correct answer is option A and option B. Next question is, which two routing options are valid with Cisco FTD? Choose two options. Option A. BGP v6. Option B. ECMP with up to 3 equal cost paths across multiple interfaces. Option C. ECMP with up to 3 equal cost paths across a single interface. Option D. BGP v4 in transparent firewall mode. Option E. BGP v4 with non-stop forwarding. Correct answer is option A and option C. Next question is, which Cisco firepower rule action displays on HTTP warning page? Option A. Monitor. Option B. Block. Option C. Interactive block. Option D. Allow with warning. Correct answer is option C.